Hey guys, it's Allison Unfiltered again. Welcome back. Listen, it is a Monday and I'm in a great mood today. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to do this. Some days I'm really nervous and I don't know what I'm going to say. Some days I just have to ask God to bring me the right things, the right words. But I want to keep talking about the 19 hard things I do to be successful. And I wanted to share a little story with you today. And it's a story, like before I get into the 19 hard things, golly, my nose always itches once we start filming. Like, seriously, it doesn't make any sense. So, I want to tell you a little story about this shirt that I have. It's Massive Action Training. Um, it's the gym that I used to belong to. One of the first gyms I ever really found like a gym home and the people that I love, not just like Planet Fitness or something like that, like on a big scale, but on a much smaller scale was probably we had classes, 5 to 10 classes, 5 to 10 people per class, right? And there was a guy named TJ, TJ Camara, and he was the trainer there. He had some other guys that were trainers too. Cole was one that stuck around for a long time, but I want to talk a little bit about TJ because I feel like I want to put some of this awareness in, especially with what we're talking about with the 19 hard things today. So TJ was our coach, our trainer, and he was from Africa. And I knew I would forget as soon as I got on here where exactly in Africa he's from, but we talked about it. I want to say Somalia, but I'm not sure if that's it. Anyway, he's a great guy. Like great guy. He worked with the ASPCA and training dogs, and he would foster puppies and stuff, and he would bring them up to the gym sometimes, and we'd get to love on some puppies. But he was just a really good guy. And I got him. I went in my closet today. And I saw this shirt, and I don't wear it very often. No, it because it's a little hard to wear it sometimes. But I wanted to wear it today. He's been on my mind really heavy. TJ committed suicide 4 years ago. Um, yeah, about 4 years ago this past March. And well, we're still in March. Um, no one saw it coming. You know what I'm saying? Like we knew he was going through some things with his wife. We knew there was, he was older. I think his wife was, I don't know, I want to say 10, 12, 15 years younger than him. But super good guy, right? And he was putting her through school and everything. She was just young and in college, and he was here, she was there. It was just hard, right? And this is about the same time that Danny started going out of town to travel for work. And so TJ and we would talk about that. We would talk about how hard it is. Like we love our spouses dearly, right? And it was just hard to be away from them. So we had that kind of a common ground. And I would stick around after class sometimes and we would just visit about it. And, I would ask him like, do you want to come over to the house? Do you want to come have dinner with me and the kids? There's no reason you should eat dinner by yourself, totally platonical. Um, and he never would. He was always respectful of the fact that Danny wasn't home, so it's just not a place he thought he could be. But I wish he had because my kids could have learned so much from him, just in that short time of knowing him. He was just such an incredible human. Synagogue, not Somalia. Synagogue is where he was from, Synagogue, Africa. Um, so anyway, they had gone through some hard times and in his culture, when things like that happen, um, it it very much looks down on the man like you weren't taking care of your wife, right? And I was there on the day before. And I remember I was in the gym and I deadlifted a really great weight, like a new weight for myself, right? And I walked by him. I was like, TJ, did you see that? Like, I totally just deadlifted like 135 pounds or something like that. I don't remember what the weight was. And he was really distracted. And I was like, hey, did you hear me? And he just kind of looked up at it from his phone, like he was just really lost in thought. And he looked up from his phone. And I said, I just deadlifted like 135 pounds. He was like, oh, cool. That's cool, you know. And he gave me a fist bump. And I thought, gosh, that's just not like him. I wonder if he's okay. Maybe he's just, I know they were trying to grow the gym and stuff. Maybe he's just, struggling today. And I just left it. And man, I wish I would have said more. I wish I would have asked him more. I wish I would have stopped him. I wish I would have a million times over, right? And the next morning is when he took his own life. And that was a shock. There were no signs. And that's what happens a majority of the time, right? You don't have the signs. But he just couldn't live with the shame, right? That his culture it brought to him, right? And so when I wear this shirt, I think about TJ, and he comes up like he's been in my memories a lot because this is the month, the anniversary that he died. And it's just like he was such a beautiful man. Like he was like the perfect specimen of a man that God created, right? And he had this beautiful accent. He was just a good human being, and it was a huge loss for all of us. Cole tried really hard to keep the gym going for the next year, but just wasn't the same. And we ended up disbanding, and they sold the gym about a year later, and now it's like a tea company place. I don't know, stupid, right? But I drive by it all the time and think about, the few years that I spent and all the sunrises I watched from that garage door in that gym at 5:30 in the morning. And the friends that I've made from that gym, that's how I met Holly. And she's the one that I do the ministry with at the jail with the kids. And I'm so grateful, right? She had just started working out there shortly before TJ passed away. I think she only knew him for like a few weeks. So she did not get blessed with a lot of love from him, but it was really cool to be able to pass it on and see some of the posts and things that come up in memories. But speaking of Holly, so she is out of town this week, and of all weeks, right? This is I just wanted to share that story about TJ. So just, I don't know, if you have someone you've lost, just remember them, talk about them, because that's how we keep their spirit alive. So I'll just kind of change the subjects and talk about Holly in the jail. She is out of town this week. She's in fancy schmancy New York, working on like the 46th floor of like a corner office with a beautiful view. And um, it's almost Easter, which means it's almost time for Jesus to come back from the dead. And so this is Holy Week. And one of the things that I've always thought was interesting is that Holly has such a great way of describing things to the kids, right? So just on their level, on their terms. And I was like, I've been freaked out about having to give the description of the crucifixion to these kids, because like I have anxiety just talking about it right now because it is not my wheelhouse, right? My wheelhouse is talking about how things relate to biblically today, how we can do it, right? But talking about the past is not in my wheelhouse, and that is hers, and she's like a biblical guru, right? And she's a total Bible nerd, which is great. Um, but she's not going to be there to talk about all the things and the days leading up to and the times leading up to and what he went through. And I've heard it a million times. I could say it, but I can't say it like she does. And I was talking to Danny about it, and Danny said, you don't give yourself enough credit. And I was like, I'll try next year, because thankfully I was talking to my bestie Kelly about it. And she was like, "Well, do you want me to come?" Because she's on the visitor list for the jail to be able to step in when Holly's away, and we'll have Scott there too, which is always great. But Kelly's a biblical guru pretty much too, and this kind of stuff just fires her up, and it's still hard for me, right? I'm still learning this path and walking this path, and like Holly made me watch The Passion of the Christ last year with her, and it was just like I've always avoided watching that movie because I knew what it was. It was so brutal, right? And that's what we need to remember, right? But I just don't have the kind of passion that she has to talk about it. So Kelly's going to step in this week. And I had told Danny, I was like, yeah, maybe I'll try again next year. That's just not my thing, right? And he's like, you don't give yourself enough credit. I was like, he goes, what would you say to somebody on your team that said, I'll try next year? He's like, you wouldn't stand for that. And I was like, well, I'll talk a little bit about it, but it's something that Kelly's very comfortable with. And maybe I should have stepped out of my comfort zone. But sometimes it's really nice to have someone in your corner that can talk about that stuff, kind of like I don't want to say a fallback person because Kelly's not a fallback person, but she's got my back. So I just I'm grateful, right? First and foremost, I'm grateful. Um, I feel like I should be serving something different than pizza talking about this, right? That there should be like some formal meal, but there's never the time for that. I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to my friends that are here to help me and have my back and support me when I need help. And it's taken a really long time for me to get to the point where I ask for help. And one of the things that Kelly and I talked about today, which is what we talked about to the kids last week, is about being prideful, right? And I will forever be a sinner, because um, as soon as I say, "Here you go, Jesus, take the wheel," right? I'm like, yeah, but you need to turn left instead of right. Like, I'm giving him the wheel, but I'm still trying to tell him what to do, right? Because I'm a control freak. That's just my nature. And Kelly is the same way. So we laugh about it because that, I mean, it's it's just in our nature to be control freaks and try to hand it over to God, and then still try to take the wheel from him, right? And it's something that I mean, I try to do better for sure. I work on it, but it's just the nature of the beast, right? And so Kelly and I were laughing about each other that if we go to hell, that's what we're going to totally go to hell for. Fortunately, we've asked for his forgiveness on a regular basis for these things, but um, yeah, I mean, pride, having too much pride, and the Ten Commandments, yeah, that's a hard one for us. That's a hard one, really hard. But we were talking to the kids about it too, about being prideful. Having pride is not the same as being proud of yourself. And I don't know. It's just interesting because it kind of falls into this 19 hard things I do to be successful. We're on number 9, where it says, y'all are gonna die how ironic this is. Um, I look like a fool while I'm looking for answers I don't have. And so I kind of want to, every time I go through these, I want to tell you where we started. So if you need to back up and watch a podcast or a couple behind, if you want to know about it. These are 19 hard things I do to be successful, by David John Kay. One is I make the call I'm afraid to make. 2, I get up earlier than I want to get up. 3, I give more than I get in return right away. 4, I care more about others than they care about me. 5, I fight when I'm already injured, bloody, and sore. 6, I feel unsure and insecure when playing it safe seems smarter. 7, I lead when no one else is following me yet. 8 is I invest in myself even though no one else is. So you can back up like 8 podcasts previous, because I'm kind of doing this as a series. But 9 is I look like a fool while I'm looking for answers I don't have. Man, that's a hard one. Why is that so hard? Why are people so scared They would rather not do anything at all and stay and live in fear than to look like a fool to someone else. Y'all, I got a reality check for you. None of us are perfect. You are not perfect. You are not. It's not going to happen. No one's ever going to think you're perfect. And even if you try to portray that you're perfect, everybody knows it, right? So why is it so hard? I look like a fool while I'm looking for answers I don't have. Isn't that part of the journey? Isn't that part of how we learn? Why is it so scary to ask for help? Why is it so scary to look like a fool? Like, who cares? Why do you care? And I have people in this business all the time that are they're scared to death to go live on their Facebook. They're scared to death to post anything about their family because they don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to say something wrong. And I'm like, you're human. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to say something wrong. And that's what makes you look human to everybody else. I mean, how many times have I screwed up on here? I mean, yeah, Danny has the ability to edit this, but for the most part, he doesn't, unless I'm like, okay, you need to delete that. Let me and start from here. Right. But that's rare, right? Because I want people to see the raw and the real and that it's okay that I screwed up. That reminds me of another story. I want to tell this story really fast. So this weekend, we were walking, and Danny's going to be rolling his eyes because it's a squirrel, but I'll get back to it. So we're walking through Lowe's this weekend. I was looking for some plants and stuff, and this girl comes up to me and she goes, "Can I ask you a question?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Do you sell Xyngular?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, how do you know me? And she's like, well, I just know, I've seen you talk, I've seen you, heard you and Facebook and all the groups and all the things. And I was like, oh, that's really, really cool. And it was like a 15-minute mentor session with this girl who I didn't know who she was, but she knew who I was. She wasn't even from our town. She wasn't even from here. But how cool is it that you're doing something that's so great you get recognized by, now granted, I get recognized for the not so great things too, but how nice is it that someone recognized me for the great things that I do? Um and and she's somebody, she struggled a little bit in her business, and I'm just like, she's like, well, I just got to get my mindset. And I'm like, mindset is the biggest crock of shit on the planet. You don't have a mindset. You just have to decide. Like, I'm trying to get my mindset. I'm trying to get I get my ducks in a row. Y'all, we're never going to have our ducks in a row. We're never going to have our mindset right. We just have to do it. And I told her that. I was like, you're just making excuses. And I said, I just call it like I see it. I said, and her husband's over there just nodding his head. Um, but I'm like, you're just making excuses, right? Like, you could do this. You just have to decide you're going to do it. And that's it. Just like you decide to get up and go pee every morning, you don't lay in the bed and pee. You just get up and go to the bathroom and pee. Well, you work this business that way with that same kind of dedication every day because you don't want to TT in the bed. Like that's what it is for me. That's where my drive and my motivation comes from. It's not that I have to be in the right mindset for it. It's that I just made a decision that this is what I'm going to do, and it's part of my daily routine. Even when I was working full time, this was a part of my daily routine. And that's what floors me so much is everybody overthinks it and they have all these excuses and all these reasons, but they go do all the things that they want to do because they decided they were going to do those things, right? And I read something online about what this girl posted, why do I wish I could wake up with the attitude of I get to do things rather than, I have to, all the list of the things I have to do on Monday mornings. And I was like, yeah, totally flip the script on yourself. Like, you get to do these things. You are capable and able of doing these things. And there's some people in this world that aren't able and capable of doing what we can do. So instead of saying I have to, say that I can, I get to. And that's part of like looking like a fool while you're looking for answers. Like, you get to do that. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm going to look like a fool. I'm going to look like such an idiot. And that's the thing too. Like, people come in this business and they're like, how am I going to know all these things about these products? And I'm like, you're not. That's why you have your coaches. I mean, you can know the basics of what stuff does. That's really not that difficult, right? I mean, out of the, I don't know, 25 products we have, I mean, I'm sure you know like 25 different songs that are familiar to you, right? It just takes practice and looking at it and knowing it and taking it and using it yourself and knowing what it's done for you. Um, but you're not going to have all the answers up front. And you might look like a fool, but I think one of the best things, the best piece of advice that I've gotten in this business is saying something like, you know what? I don't know the answer to that, but I have a coach that could probably tell me. And if she can't tell me, her coach probably can. So let me get back to you. I can't tell you how many groups that we have where people are asking questions, people that have been in this business for 10, 15 years, and they're asking questions to be able to help someone else because they don't know the answer, but they know that if they ask the questions in these groups with the hundreds of people in these groups, they're going to get an answer from somebody most of the time, right? Especially if it's someone that has a, you know, an illness or something that we're not familiar with, or it's something kind of new or whatever. They're going to be like, hey, has anybody ever, you know, worked with someone or coached someone who has this illness or whatever? Most people would be mortified to go into a group that big and ask for help like that. But I think that's part of becoming successful and being a leader is being okay with asking these questions, being okay with looking like a fool. And listen, there's some people that have been in there a long time and they ask some of the dumbest questions in the world. And I'm like, how do you not know that? You've been here for like 10 years. Like, how do you not know that? But we don't, you know, I mean, I think that in my mind, right? I'm not putting that out there, but we don't, we don't light each other up for asking questions like that, right? We lift each other up and we help each other with the answers to those questions. Yeah. That just brought a whole nother thing in my mind. If you just saw it like clicking away, yeah, that's what that was. So, why is it hard to ask for help? Why are we worried about how we are portrayed to other people? Why is it so scary? Why is it so scary to not look perfect all the time? I think that's the biggest thing that kills me is the fear that someone is gonna mess up. We all mess up. And it's okay. And if you mess up, then that means that people on your team know that it's okay for them to mess up too, that life goes on. It's okay, right? And if you do give someone the wrong answer, you can always go back and say, you know what? I'm mistaken. My sincere apologies. Here's the answer that I did find out to that question, right? But you have to be willing to look like a fool while you're searching for the answers. You have to be willing to look like someone who doesn't know what they're doing. But also you can fake it till you make it, you know? It's all about your posture. It's all about that posture. The other thing you have to have is faith. You have to have faith that God's put you in the right place and that he doesn't make mistakes. Whatever business you're in it for a reason. Whatever it is that you do, if it's what you like what I do, I'm here for a reason. And trust me, I've thought about walking away a million times because some of the drama is just not effing worth it at all. It makes me sick. And some of the, you know, the dreams I had in the beginning of what this was going to be uh, is not. And I had one of the girls on my team that I adore. She said, "Don't take this the wrong way." She said, "But I also know like it's lonely at the top." God, sometimes I wish I could go back to just being a silver manager and being completely naive, just completely naive to what goes on in the upper levels of this kind of business. It's not all bad, but some of it's real hard, right? Some of it's just gut wrenching and heartbreaking, and the people you think are your family, they're not. They're just business partners, and that's what I've had to come to a realization for too. Like I feel like I've looked like a fool all these years because I had this dream and this belief that, being part of something and being part of a family. But the reality is, um, it's just me. I'm my team. But it's just me, leading the way. And I don't know, it's just a little heartbreaking because what I wanted it to be is not what it turned out to be, right? So that's just it. But we have to have faith, right? We have to have faith that, like, that's part of the journey. Um, Part of the journey is the hard things, right? There is, you can't go through life with your head stuck in the sand and only looking for the joy, because part of the joy comes from the struggle in the struggles and the journey that we go through, right? And so when I was working out, I got a tattoo, and I was doing a lot of planks back then. Okay, planks are not my favorite, but sometimes I had to like focus on this tattoo that I got, and I had to have faith in myself that I could do this, right? Especially in the beginning. So the tattoo that I have, I don't know. How are you going to see that? Well, you can't see my arm. There you go. There. So it says faith. I don't know if you can see that or read that real well. It's really blurry for me because I'm blind as a bat. But yeah, faith. So I put that on my arm. There's a little story about that too. Maybe if I have time, I'll share it. So I can see it. So I can see it all the time. So I can look down and look at my forearm and know that I have that faith, and that keeps me strong. Uh, I wanted that tattoo there for two reasons. One is because my husband has a tattoo on the inside of his forearm. And listen, I'm a fraidy cat with needles. So this tattoo took like 10 minutes. And Lil Paul took my pulse. Like, he was like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I was sweating before we started. My anxiety was out the roof. My heart rate was flying, but it took like 10 minutes and we had to take a break in it because I was like, like sweat pouring down my face, right? But Danny has a tattoo on his forearm that he surprised me with, and it says sometimes, and it's got a little heart. Well, it was my handwriting from a note that I left him years and years and years ago. When we first met and we started dating, I used to, and I probably told this story maybe, but I used to, instead of saying "I love you," because I wanted to make sure like this was the right, I wanted to take it slow. I didn't want to rush into the love part of it. I wanted to make sure that this person was my best friend. And so instead of saying "I love you," he would ask me, he would say, do you ever feel like you want to say something? You know how when you look in someone's eyes when you're falling in love and you just have that look, right? Like, he's like, "Do you ever want to feel like you want to say something?" And I'm like, "Sometimes," and just left it at that. Well, then I started, like, I would leave him a note like, "Hey, I ran to the donut store to go get the kids. I didn't want to wake you up. Be back in a little bit. Sometimes, Allison," right? And that was something that stuck with us. And now we say all of it, right? All the time, all of it. But that was something that stuck with him for sure. And so that was a surprise when he got a tattoo and he came home and it had my handwriting. Like, he took the note to the tattoo artist and they copied my handwriting, and it said sometimes. And it's a great story to tell. It's going to be a great story to tell our grandkids one day. And I remember seeing that tattoo for the first time and I thought that was the most, I don't even know if there's a word for that. That was the best gift I've ever received from him. Like, what a gift that my handwriting is on your body, you know? So that's the little story of our tattoos on our forearms. Of course, my mom thought I was absolutely trashy because I have a tattoo on my arm and uh, all the things, but I guess at least I didn't have it when I had a wedding dress on. And whatever, you know, my mom's definitely not a tattoo person. She was just like, she saw it, she was like, ugh, did you do that? You know, but those things are for ourselves, right? So anyway, little story. But number 9 of 19 hard things I do to be successful is I look like a fool when I'm looking for answers I don't have. You guys, it's okay to look like you don't know what you're talking about. It's okay to look like a fool. It's okay to not be perfect. And it's okay to ruffle the feathers of other people because they're not living your lives. They're not living your dreams. It's yours. So be okay with not being perfect. Be okay with feeling unsure and looking like a fool. It doesn't, because at the end of the day, do you know who remembers your most embarrassing moments? You. You remember your most embarrassing moments. Most people couldn't even tell you something embarrassing about you that they remember. I mean, maybe. I mean, I snort when I laugh, so a lot of people will tell you something like that about me. But that's not like one of my things that I worry about, right? But the things that you worry about are not the things that people think about you. You'd be surprised. Anyway, love you guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Peace out, homies. I will see you on the flip side.